Previously on Higurashi When They Cry console arcs. Convenience store magazine racks, train station shops, bookstores. No matter where I went, headlines about Hinamizawa and the Great Disaster were constantly hanging over my head. On top of that, their overstated designs and exaggerated language remind me of the bizarre decorations I saw at the Hatakayama and Kimiyoshi houses.
それにしても2000人の生贄か気軽に書いてくれる
Since they have no personal connection to the dead, they just see it as a number that makes their articles more enticing.
今世間で一番人気のある週刊誌らしいですよ。掲載されてる情報が早くて安くて面白い。ま、その分取材先から名誉毀損とかなんだのと訴えられてて問題も多いようですがね。
Oh boy, libel.
はあ、夏のオカルト特集お社様のたたり
Oh boy, hey. Well, isn't that interesting? What do they know about the Oishiro-sama's curse, I wonder?
ちょっと待ってください。これってまさか。
いやいや、私たちの捜査内容がそのまんま掲載されていますよ。
I see. We got a leaker in our midst, do we not?
報道規制をかけてるはずなのに、どうやって入手したんでしょうね。
悪質な情報漏洩じゃないですか。一体誰がこんなことを。
Who indeed?
さあ、ただ真偽はともかく、例の一連の事件は一般に公開されていないことを考えれば、警察関係者も裏で一枚噛んでいるかもしれませんね。
なんでこんなことまで説明を。
詰めに入ったということじゃないですか。大小の騒動をあちこちで起こして、その原因やらを噂でルフ、そして最後はドーンと派手な事件を起こしてたたりを演出なんてね。
Seems plausible. Come to think of it, it did seem like something had been guiding the information released since the incident happened. As if some sort of information manipulation was going into these periodicals. Anyway, does that mean the people spreading this information are doing so with some ill intention? Ding 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 ding! You got it!
恐怖は世間の注目を集めます。
ごめんね、お邪魔だった。いえ。
Despite clearly looking uncomfortable, Natsumi answered by shaking her head. She seemed to be at a loss as to whether she should get up and leave. Just as Tomi had heard, she seemed rather timid. Anyway.
突然話しかけてごめんなさい。なんだか懐かしくてね、その制服が。実はね、私、あなたの学校 OG なの。つまり先輩。数学の中村は元気？
中村先生。いえ、そんな先生はいませんが。
そっか、もう転任しちゃったか。口うるさいやつだったけど、いなくなるとちょっと寂しいわね。
After faintly looking down, Tomei let out a lonely laugh. Of course, none of that was true. She was taught that directly asking, "What school are you from?" was no way to get any information. In fact, it could make them recoil and feel frightened that another person was prying into their affairs.
同情しているように見せかけても、本当はただ面白がっているだけ。優しく振る舞う自分に酔っているだけ。それなら無視されている方がずっとマシ。見下されているみたいだし、本人はいたわってるつもりで満足しているかもしれないけど、傷の痛みも知らないくせにどれだけ私を傷つけているか、その子たちはきっとわからない。わかるわけない。わかってたまるか。 友達だから何が友達だ。勝手に助けておいて結局自分の手に負えないと分かったら最後は知らないふりして。期待してたんですよ。ひょっとしたら助けてくれるかもって。それを裏切られた時どんな気持ちになると思いますか。だったら最初から期待なんてしなきゃいいんだ。
君吉さん。
Tomei was mortified after realizing she blurted out a word she shouldn't know. But Natsumi didn't seem surprised at all, and turned toward her with a sarcastic smile.
ああ、やっぱり刑事さんだったんですね。あなたの嘘はともかく、話を聞いてくれたことは嬉しかったです。それは本当ですから。それじゃあ、さよ。
待って、夏美さ
ん。Natsumi had already grabbed her bag and gotten up from the bench when Tomei reflexively called out to her. Natsumi made it several steps ahead before stopping with her back turned to Tomoe.
なんです。あなたもひなみ沢のことで何かを知りたいんですか。おあいにくですが、知りたかったら他を当たってください。もっとも資料とかで調べる以上のことが出てくるとも思えませんが、ただ私に聞いても期待しているようなことは何も。
そうじゃない。そうじゃなくて。ねえ、夏美さん。誰も信じられないなんて、そんなこと思わないで。あなたにも優しさを向けてくれる人がいるでしょ。友達とか家族とか、その人たちはきっとあなたのことを。
いませんよ。
え？
Slowly, Natsumi turned to face Tomoe, with no light in her eyes, as cold as before. However, behind all that, Tomei felt like she saw her shaking.
家族なんか私にはいません。私の幸せを奪っていくような人たち、私の家族じゃないです。
夏美さん。
ともえさん、もっと早く、そうすればきっと。さよなら。話せて嬉しかったです。
And this time, Natsumi left the vicinity without looking back.
助けてあげたいんです、彼女のこと。
Unable to understand what Chief Inspector Minai was getting at, I suddenly raised my head. I saw through the rearview mirror that she was looking straight ahead, but in her eyes, I noticed a shimmer of loneliness.
昔の私とどこか似てるなって。立場と状況が違えば、私もああなっていたかもしれませんし。
ともえちゃん。
We fell silent. The car continued approaching Kakuji Station at a gentle speed. Meanwhile, the three of us couldn't say anything. We were lost in our heartfelt thoughts. And so it continues. Greetings, my name is Neosekken, and welcome back to my Let's Play of the Higurashi When They Cry console arcs. So, this location that we seem to be at right now, I believe I've seen it in Chapter 8, towards the beginning portions. And if it's indeed the same place I'm thinking of, then I have a feeling we're going to be witnessing a possible meeting between some higher-ups within the Japanese government, who may or may not be talking about the bizarre going-ons in Hinamizawa, and what role that they may have in regards to the research being carried on over there. I mean, I don't think I'm gonna really learn much of anything that I didn't already find out in Chapter 8 here either, so most of this is probably gonna be a bit boring for me to sit through, but who knows? Maybe they'll surprise us a little bit and give us something surprisingly tantalizing to sink our teeth into. One way to find out, am I right? Spring, 1981. Somewhere. Since when did food and alcohol become so delicious? On this day, Tomei was probably... Okay, never mind. I guess I was thinking of a... I guess I was mistaken. Oh well. Back to our detectives, I guess. On this day, Tomei was probably experiencing the third happiest moment of her life thus far. Oh yeah? Is she stuffing her face with some high-quality inn burgers right now?
ちょっともう飲みすぎだよ。
Maybe it's just really good sake.
お姉ちゃんってば。
いいじゃないの、たまにはさ。あ、すみません。
Tomei was slightly drunk and gleefully laughing as she opened the sliding door and called out to the waitress.
お願いします。今日だけ見逃してください。
ああ、そうですね。
Strictly speaking, bringing outside food and drink into this restaurant was prohibited. Never mind, it's a restaurant, not an inn. I'm just bad at identifying stuff today, it seems. However, when Tomei explained the situation to the waitress, she shrugged her shoulders and said, "Our little secret," then went into the kitchen and came back with 2 beautiful wine glasses.
そうそう、これこれ。
I don't know, a wine glass is a wine glass. Once you've seen one, you've seen them all.
やっぱワインを飲むのがコップだとなんだか味気なくなっちゃうもんね。それじゃ許可も下りたことだし、景気よく全部飲んじゃいましょう。
もう強引だな。それにそのワインすごく高いんでしょ。確かシャトーなんだっけ。
You know, I'd probably listen to her. This could be a serious blow to your burger funds, for all you know. You don't want to starve yourself, do you?
本当に大丈夫なの？
何言ってるの。今日はあんたの警察官採用のお祝いなのよ。本当だったらもっと高いのにしようと思ってたんだけど、とりあえずこれで我慢しなさい。
これでも十分大げさだって。
Monaka shook her head in amazement. But even so, she still looked happy. Indeed, Tomei was certainly in unusually high spirits that evening. Breaking the rules inside a restaurant seemed like something she would never do. However, that wasn't entirely impossible. Plus, even though they had been fighting for a long time, her younger sister, who been living far away, I think you meant to put a bin there, has been living far away, finally seemed to be taking her work seriously. It was about time for the two of them to move on from their parents' deaths. Yeah, well, we already know that Tomei still has a way to go on that. After the psychological trauma her sister endured in that incident, Tomei dedicated her life to protecting her. She abandoned her promising future in athletics and declined to enroll in the university as sent her a personal invitation, all to further that goal.
未来、本当にいいのか？今のお前の実力なら、次の世界陸上の日本代表だって狙えるところにいるんだ。
That good, huh?
大学がダメなら、実業団にだって紹介状を書いてもらえるだろう。だから、陸上を完全に諦めなくてもいいんじゃないか？
Staff members, alumni, the counselor. Everyone told her that and tried to stop her. Nevertheless, Tomei's determination was unshaken.
陸上を続ける限り、きっと練習だの遠征だのと忙しい毎日を送ることになります。妹が昔の明るさを取り戻すまで、私はできる限りのことをしてあげたいんです。
Indeed, As far as Tomei was concerned, her sister was far more important than extracurricular activities and career planning. From then on, Tomei tried desperately hard to fill in for her lost parents. During Monaka's hospitalization, Tomei skipped out on school to support her through her psychological care and rehabilitation. After Monaka's hospitalization concluded and they returned home, Tomei studied day and night to make up for the missed schoolwork. And after Monaka returned to school, Tomei did her best to protect her sister during the many times she got into trouble at school, all the while believing it would help her regain her former happiness, even a little. Nonetheless, Tomei was ready to give up on the university entrance exams because she didn't think she'd be able to pass in the short time she had to prepare. Maybe it was luck, or maybe it was a result of her efforts. But somehow, she managed to pass the Ibaraki National University entrance exam. She decided to go to Ibaraki, where her grandmother was from, rather than the familiar Tokyo. Needless to say, Monaka's hard time at school was a contributing factor. Once Tomei began attending college, their distant relatives started helping the girls who lost their parents by paying for tuition and living expenses. However, Tomei had already saved up the money she needed to pay for Monaka's future, so she didn't need to touch the donations. So what'd you do with them?
国立大ならバイト先も見つけやすいし、奨学金もあるからね。これはまどかの結婚資金として残しておきたいの。
Oh, that's rather sweet of you. Her grandmother seemed a little concerned with that reply, but she meant it earnestly. Tomei firmly believed that the probability of making one of them happy was much higher than the probability of them both being happy. You deserve to be happy too, though. Still, despite those intentions, Monaka suddenly dropped out of high school one day. And when Tomei came home to question her about it, her grandmother told her that Monaka had already walked out.
ごめんなさい。私はもうお姉ちゃんのお荷物になりたくない。これ以上お姉ちゃんに迷惑をかけたくありません。
That letter was the only thing left in her room.
どうか探さないでください。お元気で。さようなら。
何よ。何よ。お荷物なんて。お荷物なんて。
Who said anything like that? Wouldn't she even think that? I never thought of Monaka as an obstacle, not even for an instant. That girl was always my precious, my only little sister.
バカ野郎。まどかの大バカ野郎。
She desperately searched around town. She visited every place she knew and called every one of her acquaintances, walking late into the night for days, walking and walking some more. And after trashing several pairs of shoes, Tomei finally understood. It was an undeniable fact that Monaka wasn't in this town anymore. One night, she heard a story that a friend encouraged Monaka to take the train. So Tomei stood out in the alley, in the middle of the pouring rain, looked up to the heavens, and cried. She had been holding in the sorrow from the death of her parents all this time, but in that moment, she was powerless to hold back the rush of tears. If Tomei hadn't run to Ooshi at that time, she might have destroyed herself in her desperation. Then, a few years later, Tomei was traveling to Tokyo as part of police business. And by some amazing coincidence, she ran into Modaka at a street corner downtown. And when Tomei learned that Monaka was working in a shady establishment, for the first time in her life, she smacked her.
いや、帰らな
ないわよ、私は。
Maka pushed Tomei's extended hand away as she said that, with her cheeks bright red.
まどか、あんた。
私のことは放っておいてよ。お姉ちゃんと違ってバカだけど、私は私なりにちゃんと考えて生きてるんだから。
考えてる？一体何をよ。あんたの考える生き方は酒進めながら中年男たち相手に嘘800並べ立てることか？
それでもお金もらってるんだから立派なお仕事よ。みんな真剣に必死に働いてる。勝手な偏見で見下したこと言わないで。
まどか、このあんたは。
She still remembered the pain in her fists at that moment. Even now. Then several more years passed, up to today. Since that day, Tomei had prepared herself to never see her sister again. Nevertheless, Tomei suddenly received a message from Monaka after her long absence. It was a long time coming, but in the depths of her heart, she had been waiting for all this time.
いろいろあったけど、でももういい。まどかがやっと心を入れ替えてくれたんだから、これ以上のことはない。
Plus, Maka was becoming a police officer, just like Tomei and her father. So Tomei was deeply moved.
ほら、箸が止まってるわよ。何食べる？あ、塩辛あるわね。それ頼もっか。あんた好きだったでしょ？
もういいってば。だいたい倹約家のお姉ちゃんがどういう心変わりなの？そりゃ確かにお祝いしてとは言ったけど、何もこんな高そうな料亭でやらなくても。
何言ってるのよ。いいまどか。こういう時のためにお金ってのは使うものなの。無駄遣いは良くないけど、ケチばっかりでも人生楽しくないでしょ？違う？
うわ、お姉ちゃんがそれ言うかな。
うっさい。それにさ、私も再来月からは警部補なんだから、お給料だって上がるんだし、どーんと任せなさいっての。
あ、そっか、いよいよ警部補なんだね。遅くなったけどおめでとう。
うん、ありがとう。
Their glasses full of amber wine clanged together as the two of them celebrated each other's accomplishments. Even though she was a college graduate, she was still a woman, and very few people outside the executive path made the rank of deputy inspector at so young an age. However, even though Tomei had no desire to climb among the elites, her father's brave name happened to work in her favor.
あ、だけどお姉ちゃんって今は警部補研修期間だから警察学校で寮生活なんでしょ？こんな夜に外出して門限は大丈夫なの？
大丈夫よ。初任教養の時と違って割とその辺は緩やかなんだから。今日は土曜日だし、明日の新幹線で帰れば問題なしよ。
へえ。ねえ、寮ってどんな感じ？参考までに教えてよ。
いいわよ。まどかも来月から警察学校に入るんだもんね。
After saying that, Tomei grabbed a bunch of old notes and pamphlets she had prepared in advance and pulled them out of her bag. True to Tomei's character, all the pages were tattered, and when she opened them up, they were covered in marks and sticky notes.
きっと押し入れの奥からでも引っ張り出してきたんだろうな。
She must have turned the house upside down to find these things covered in dust, hoping to help her younger sister. Tomei was willing to put in the effort to help Monaka, anytime. And even though their feud continued to this day, that aspect of her character didn't change a bit. Monaka suddenly felt teary-eyed, but she tried to wipe it away with her fingers and pushed herself to stay bright and cheerful. She didn't want to dampen their celebration by acting so unrefined.
へえ、結構覚えること多いんだね。憲法、民法、刑法。うわ、英語って必須なの？
当たり前じゃない。外国の人も立派な一市民よ。
Depends on the foreigner.
舐めてかかると痛い目に遭うんだから。
とほほ。まさかまたこの年になってバテレンの言葉を学ばなきゃいけないとは。
Christianity didn't originate in English territories, you know.
あんたいつの時代の人よ。ま、確かにまどかってお父さんと一緒で英字書くの下手くそだったもんね。
失礼な。お父さんほどひどくなかったよ。多分。
他にも道交法とか救急関連の知識とかもあるからね。もちろん逮捕術と武道も。そういえばまどかは前に剣道やってたっけ？
前って小学校の話じゃない。一級取ってすぐやめちゃったからやってなかったのと一緒だよ。
大丈夫よ。きっと体が覚えてるから。私の時もそうだったしね。
お姉ちゃんと一緒にしないでってば。大体ね。
And for a while, the two of them went on excitedly telling old stories and sharing memories of each other. They covered a range of topics, and the noise and laughter never stopped. In addition to the nostalgia, they took pleasure in closing the gap in the time they spent away from each other.
そういえば寮にお姉ちゃん以外の女の人っているの？
結構いるわよ。最近は女性警官の採用が増えたからね。と言っても警部補見習いは今年は私一人だけみたいだけど、だからそう言うとみんなびっくりしてる。
そりゃそうだよ。30枚でしかも女性で警部補さんでしょ。普通ならありえないよ。
Many industries have been publicly endorsing gender equality, but there were still problems with that in practice. Police officers in particular are required to have the robustness to deal with criminals, so being a lady is seen as a disadvantage. Well, I mean, yeah, biology is a thing. In fact, Tomei's test results were a larger factor in her promotion than her manager's recommendation in the job interview. When she found out she passed a test on her first shot, she couldn't believe her ears.
最近の偉い人たちは割と懐が大きいみたいね。まさかこんなにも早くお父さんと並べるとは思っていなかったんだけど。
After saying that, Tomei chugged the rest of her wine. Monaka had a bitter smile on her face as she refilled Tomei's empty glass. Even though it was a rural college, Tomei still graduated from a national university, whereas her father, Yusuke Minai, was just a high school graduate. So thanks to that key difference in their educational background, they couldn't be compared so easily. But for the two of them, the title of deputy inspector certainly had a special sentiment.
お姉ちゃん、まだお父さんのあれ相変わらず追い続けてるの？
え？もちろんよ。
That thing was the memo from Tomei's father that she found in the scorched remains of the storehouse after their parents perished in the fire. According to the note, her father Yusuke Minai discovered something on Wednesday in June, but she still couldn't figure out what it meant.
警部補になったら過去の捜査資料も前より見ることができるんだよね。よかったじゃない。これからはだいぶやりやすくなるよ。
うん。だけど警部補になると今までよりも忙しくなって年給があんまり取れなくなるんだよね。それに警察庁で力になってくれていた人も今度異動になるみたいだし。
そうなんだ。あれからもうすぐ。
Did it really feel like 10 years? Or was it no time at all? Tomei wasn't sure. However, since losing her parents and living away from Monaka, she dedicated her life to pushing herself hard at work every day.
ごめんね。せっかくのめでたい席に変なことを思い出させて。さ、今日はとにかく飲みましょ
う。もうそんなに気合い入れなくても。お姉ちゃんはただでさえ大食いで大酒飲みなんだからさ。
I know. She's really impressive.
ちょっとくらい抑えめで標準だよ。
失礼ね。お酒はもともとそんなに飲まないわよ。ただ飲む時には思いっきり飲むだけで。
それを大酒飲みって言うのよ。
あ、そうだ。せっかくだから今日はあんたの家に泊めてもらおうかな。うん、それがいいな。そうしたらホテル代も浮くしね。いいでしょ、まどか。
だからそういうところがケチだって。じゃなくて私の家に来るの？それはちょっと。
Why, is it a mess?
いいじゃない、姉妹なんだからさ。別に誰かと同棲してるってわけでもないんでしょ。
I vote it's a mess.
え？
After seeing Monaka's reaction, Tomei stopped pouring the wine and looked up. Her face was turned slightly red, and her eyes were wandering.
いるの？一緒に住んでる人？
いや、正確には私がその人の家に住んでるんだけどね。
Ah.
ふーん、そうなんだ。
That slightly unexpected answer washed away Tomei's drunken mood. Thinking about it, they were both much older, so it wasn't all that surprising. Still, realizing that her sister was willing to live with someone other than her made her feel lonely.
ごめんね。別に秘密にしておくつもりはなかったんだよ。ただもう少しちゃんと目処がついたら報告しようかなって思ってただけで。
何言ってるのよ。同棲してる時点で十分リーチじゃないの。
いや、お姉ちゃんのその考え方はちょっと古すぎるような。
For the longest time, Tomei held very proper ideals about men and women dating. But Monaka thought the time for that was over. She didn't think that staying over at a man's house was something worth preaching about all morning.
それで？ちなみにどんな人なの？もし水商売関係とか言ったらぶっ飛ばすわよ。
違うって。立派な肩書きも社会的信用もある人だよ。
Okay, so what is it?
それにとっても優しいし真面目で。
そんなの私会ってもいないのにわかんないわよ。というわけだから近いうちに紹介しなさい。あ、これ命令ね。
もうこういうところでお姉ちゃんパワー使わないでよ。それにお姉ちゃんだって知ってる人だよ。ほら、警察庁でお世話になった。
警察庁でお世話に？はて。
Surprise! It's your boss. After hearing that, Tomei thought of the faces of the people she met at the National Police Agency. But most of them were married men. Therefore...
まさか不倫？
私のこと一体どう思ってるのかな。そんなわけないでしょ。
I would hope not.
ちゃんと結婚も考えてるんだからね。
じゃあ誰なのよ。教えてくれてもいいじゃない。
なら言うけど驚かないでよ。
Well, I think we all know that she's gonna fail at not being surprised quite miserably. So, grab your popcorn.
そんなの私絶対認めないわよ。
警部、見ない警部。
ああ、うるさい。今取り込み中。それに私は警部じゃなくて警部補よ。
起きてください、見ない警部。
Ah, so you were dreaming. Thursday, July 7th, 1983. Inside Kakuchi Station.
は？
Welcome back to the present! We've missed you. When she opened her eyes, a familiar face stood before her.
藤田くん？
すみません、お休みのところ。よろしいですか？
ああ、うん。
So what's on your mind, Diet Akasaka? Tomei slightly raised her upper body as she let out a small yawn. Then she looked around for her eyes still half asleep. This was the break room. She intended to take a light nap in the middle of the night, and laid herself down on the chase lounge. I don't read that word often enough, clearly. But apparently she had fallen completely asleep. She could see the light of the morning sun, and hear the cry of a sparrow coming out from the window. Tomei noticed a large blanket down by her feet, and realized someone must have hung it over her.
夢か。
え？
うん、なんでもない。
Finally starting to regain her consciousness, Tomei sat up in the chair and quickly folded up the blanket. And after delicately slapping both her cheeks, she turned to Detective Fujita.
何か動きが？
ええ。例の件で少々。早朝で申し訳ありませんが、第三会議室に来ていただけますか？
Oh boy, what could possibly be happening now?
大石刑事と赤坂警視も、もう間もなくこちらに到着する予定です。
わかった。あ、ちょっとシャワー浴びてきたいから、10分後でもいい？
There's a shower in this place?
わかりました。では。
Detective Fujita gently bowed, then left the break room. He was a straightforward type, and he wore his feelings all over his face. Well, think about it now, this is basically a police headquarters, so I guess it wouldn't be out of the ordinary to have a shower handy, especially given their line of work. From how he looked, it was easy to assume this would be a bad story.
さてと。
Tomei stood up and exited the break room. The shower room was far from the break room. So as she walked down the empty hall, she thought back to the content of her dream.
あの日は結局、また喧嘩別れだったな。
After leaving the celebration, she boarded the train for head boiling in anger. She drank more on the way and got into a scuffle with the conductor at Tokyo Station. At least she thought so. That poor conductor. She was completely drunk at the time, so she didn't remember much. And she eventually woke up on a park bench. But surprisingly, her body was in good shape. Fortunately, Monaka called a few days later to say sorry about before, which prevented the issue from escalating.
今思えば、別にあそこまで怒る必要はなかったんだよね。
Her sister continued dealing with the man from the National Police Agency, their father's old boss, and Tomei's current boss. Love had no age limit. Strong disagree there. So if Monaka was serious about him, Tomei should be willing to accept it. Even though she had her misgivings about the age difference, it wasn't a strong enough reason to be opposed. Her opposition at the time was really just jealousy. Loneliness of her sister moving away reminded her of losing her parents.
とはいえ。
Tomei thought back to a few days ago, about what she said to Natsumi. To simply not wait to find people to believe in, but to make an effort to believe in them. She didn't practice that belief, even though she was the one who said it. No matter how great it sounded, it was only an empty promise.
そうよね。あの子にあれだけ大見栄を切ったんだから、そろそろ潮時かな。
Tomei nodded in response, even though nobody was there to see her response. She felt that her guilt was finally starting to feel a little lighter.
それじゃあ花田くん、例の件を報告して。
はい。例の君吉家の祖母秋ですが、やはりこの数日誰も目撃した者がいないそうです。
It begins. Detective Hanada pointed to a photo of an old woman attached to the whiteboard with magnets as he read his report out loud. On Chief Inspector Minai's orders, he asked around at the places Aki Kimiyoshi visited on a daily basis.
つまり家に閉じこもっている。
いえ、それがどうも変なんです。実はおととい、宅配便の配達員が君吉家を訪れたそうなんですが、家の中は異常にしんと静まり返っていたと。
That delivery man had apparently visited the Kimiyoshi house a few days prior as well, when it was littered with those eerie magical decorations. And during that visit, he was clearly able to hear the old woman chanting prayers from the back room.
まじないをやめたってことですかね。あるいは体調を崩しているとか。
More closer to the latter.
それ以外の可能性も考えた方がいいかもしれませんが。
その理由は？
Detective Hanada turned toward Chief Inspector Minai, feeling a little lost. Noticing that, she urged him to continue with a nod.
実は土曜日の晩です。君吉家の2つ隣の家の受験生が車のエンジン音を聞いたそうです。その時聞いていた深夜ラジオの内容から推測して、だいたい午前2時頃だったと。
それで？
君吉当時の所有する車は少し離れた場所の駐車場に置いてあるのですが、先月ひなみ沢へ里帰りに行った後、近くのガソリンスタンドで洗車を行ったとの証言があります。にもかかわらず私が見たところ、タイヤ近くのボディ裏には草混じりの泥がびっしりとついていました。
ほう。ということは、ここ最近にどこか山道のあるところへ出かけたということになりますな。
Ushi-sen let out a courageous laugh as he looked over the materials at hand. As Detective Hanada had said, the traces of dried mud were clearly visible in a photo, sandwiched between two other pieces of evidence.
そこで、君吉当時に先日任意で聞き込みを行いました。彼は日曜日、岐阜県の山に出かけていたことにつきましてはあっさり認めました。何でも沢釣りに行ったとのことです。
Late night, no, not late night, but more like super early morning fishing.
沢釣りね。
それでうまく誘導して車の後部トランクを開けさせたところ、確かに中には彼の証言通り釣り道具一式と、あと魚の匂いが残っていました。ただ念のため彼の職場の何人かにも確認したのですが、当時の趣味が釣りだという話は皆初耳だったそうです。それに彼の釣り道具のルアーを自分で見て確かめたのですが、
And they're all brand spanking new. That or they didn't show any signs of use. It's one of those, right?
明らかに海用でした。
Oh, that's even better. That's even better, or rather worse for him. After saying that, Detective Honda dropped two lures on the desk. They didn't look so different at first glance, but the one labeled for river fishing was clearly a little smaller.
私事で恐縮ですが、実は私も釣りが趣味なものですから、いくら初心者とはいえこの程度の間違いをして、しかも何匹か釣り上げてきたというのはちょっと信じられませんね。
はほう。ちなみに花田刑事は結構いける方なんですか？
まあそこそこには。妻は川魚が好物で、結果次第でご機嫌が上下するものですから、結構研究に研究を重ねたものです。
はい、のろけ話はその辺で。早い話が偽装の可能性が高いということね。花田くん。
ええ、そうです。
なるほどね。
となるとまずいですよ、大石さん。
Aki Kimiyoshi's disappearance, the late-night engine sounds, the remnants of mountain driving, and duplicitous behavior on top of it all. If we follow that train of logic to its conclusion, we're already too late. So it would seem, my friend, so it would seem. And now it's at this point where I'm basically officially writing off seeing a happy ending for this arc we're on.
君吉当時にもう少し揺さぶりをかけてみますか？
いや、それはまだ早いと思います。普段から引きこもりがちと聞きましたから、いると白を切られてしまえば踏み込めません。捜査令状を取るとしても確実な証拠を抑えたわけではありませんし。
でしょうな。それに彼は主犯ではなく共犯ということも考えられます。その場合、主犯の人物に口封じでもされる可能性がありますよ。
He's on the money. Chief Inspector Minai rested her chin on her hands and closed her eyes for a while. Then once she collected her thoughts, she opened her eyes again and turned to Detective Hanada.
君吉当時はしばらく泳がせておきましょう。その代わり、彼が沢釣りに行ったという山に捜査員を派遣します。理由は、失踪した疑いのある君吉秋の捜索。花田くん、山村課長に行って、一家から何人か借りてきてくれる？
わかりました。
岐阜県警さんと沢口署さんには署長から連絡してもらって了解を取っておいてね。あと県警本部に連絡して鑑識の手配をお願い。捜査開始まで時間はかかっちゃうけど、後々のことを考えれば仕方ないわ。
了解です。
Detective Hanada quickly rose from his seat and ran out of the room.
私たちも手伝いましょうか。山の捜索なら人数は多い方がいいと思いますので。
あ、いえ、赤坂警視と大石さんには別のことを緊急でお願いしたいのですが、よろしいでしょうか？
別のこと？はて。
これです。
As she said that, Chief Inspector Minai removed a palm-sized pink case from her inside pocket. She opened the lid, revealing packages containing unusually colored capsules.
これは？
君吉夏美が以前携帯していたものです。返そうと思って今日までつい機会を逸していたのですが。
風邪薬かなんかですかね。食欲のなくなりそうな色のカプセルですな。
印字の記号から各メーカーに問い合わせてみたのですが、どれも該当なし。
That's definitely sus.
法定外の薬の可能性がありますね。
Normally, prescription drugs contain markings to identify the name and manufacturer of the drug. Failing to do so indicated that these were unregulated drugs, so their domestic use should be severely restricted.
薬の成分については岐阜県警の松岡君に調べてもらっています。彼はこの手の分析が得意なので。
You know, I'm trying to think about it. Was there ever any mention of Natsumi needing any medication like this in the last arc? Because I can't remember there ever being an instance of that being mentioned anywhere. So, I mean, so if it's drugs for Hinamizawa syndrome, because I don't know what else it could be given the circumstances and the lacking information we have on it. That just begs the question, why didn't we see any signs of these pills until now, after the last episode?
で、お二人には佐伯総合病院で君吉夏美の通院歴を確認していただきたいのです。
なるほど。この薬はそこで処方されたものだと。
いえ、まだそこまでは。
But wait a minute, would they even still give medication like that now that Hinamizawa is pretty much toast, along with the Irie clinic? The research that was being done there would basically have been ground to a complete halt too.
ただ、彼女の住む町で大きな病院は佐伯総合病院だけです。ですから、これを入手する方法として一番可能性が高いのはそこではないかと。
まあ確かに 小さな院ではリスクとコストのことを考えても法定外の薬を扱うとはちょっと考えにくいですからね。
それにこの薬、例の畠山家で見つけてきたカプセルと形状と色が似ているのです。
Well, how about that? It's looking to me that this being medicine for Hinazawa syndrome is looking more likely.
これを見てください。
After saying that, Chief Inspector Minai pointed to a picture of the capsule she found the other day.
ほほう、言われてみれば似ていますね。こんな派手な色、薬向きじゃないと思っていましたが。
単なる偶然の一致かもしれませんが、念のため君吉夏美の他に畠山家の家族全員の通院歴も調べてもらえたら助かります。捜査令状は取ってありますので、今度は刑事として対応してください。
お心遣い助かります。
Last time, our rash behavior caused our cover story about being publishers to fall apart. There might still be some animosity over that.
本来なら私が直接行くつもりだったのですが、今日までに例の衝殺事件の報告書をあげなければいけませんので、お願いできますでしょうか。
もちろんです。早速行きましょうか、大石さん。
それじゃあともいちゃん、今日のご祝儀に吉報を期待しててくださいな。
ご祝儀？意味がわかりませんよ。まったく。
Chief Inspector Minai's face exploded in astonishment. Anyway, Saiki General Hospital, huh? Hopefully some useful information will be hiding there.
それじゃあ藤田君、報告を聞きましょうか。
After Akasaka and Ooshi left the room, Tomei's expression returned to normal as she turned to Fujita. Having not said a word until then, he pulled out the report hidden under his desk and handed it to Tomei with a painful expression.
何？
よろしかったのですが、花田や赤坂警視たちにこのことをお知らせしなくても。
Why are you hiding information from them?
聞かせたくなかったのよ。あの二人にはまだね。
Why wait? Tomei replied with a sigh as she turned over the cover of the report.
花田君ってこの前娘さんが誕生したばかりでしょ。赤坂警視にも娘さんがいる。まだ確定じゃない状況で安易に話すのもどうかと思ったしね。
でももうほぼ確定と言って差し支えないと思います。
Is this an autopsy report, by any chance? Well, something like that. Then Tomei continued flipping through the pages, looking over the investigation reports. No, it can't be an autopsy report, because as you just said, they're still confirming things, so it would be an investigation report. Fujita had borrowed it from the forensics team. It showed the interior of the Hatakayama household, the room of the eldest son, Kentaru. It was probably a shooting from close range, with huge bloodstains spread across the wall, as if from an explosion. In contrast with their visit yesterday, the pictures clearly illustrated the lack of life in the house. Tomei suddenly frowned while looking at the muddy color of the blood.
俺にはまだ信じられません。
So they committed suicide, huh?
それに今回ばかりはミナイさんの推理が外れてくれと。
そっか。私もね、実は同じ。今でもまだ私の勝手な想像だったらなってきっても、現実は見ないとね。
As she said that, Tomei arranged the photos on the desk according to the tags attached to them. Out in front, was a photo of the wall in Kentaro's room that she had taken earlier, and one of the wall inside Misao in his wife's room.
最初に違和感を持ったのはこの血の飛び散り方を見た時ね。そして実際に見に行って、もしかしたらがおそらくになった。
Tomei pointed to the bloodstain on the wall of Kentaro's room.
ライフルを射撃で構えるときは普通こう肩の高さで狙いをつける。だから銃弾はその本人の身長に見合ったものになる。
ええ。
ただ身長の低い対象物を至近距離から撃つときは違うわよね。ほとんどの大人の場合は立ったまま銃口を下に向けて引き金を引く。だとしたら
Of course, the bullet would have gone right over Kentaro's head otherwise.
ケンタロウは至近距離から銃弾を頭部に受けて即死した。だったら血痕が壁に付着するのは変。見下ろす姿勢から発射すれば普通なら血痕は床に広がるはず。でも血痕も銃弾も壁にあったということは、ライフルが構えられた高さはほぼケンタロウと同じということになる。
ええ、鑑識も同じ見解でした。
それにもう一つ、マサオはライフルを喉に押し当てて自殺を図ったとのことだけど、ライフルの向きを考えると別の見方もある。
The kid in the house was the one that fired the rifle. Is that where you're going with this?
つまりマサオよりも身長の低い犯人が見上げる姿勢からライフルを発射した。
ではやはり本当の犯人は。
ええ、そう。現時点で最も怪しいのは長女の畠山葵よ。
Now there's a plot twist. While writing a report on the nurse burning incident, Tomei thought about her earlier conversation with Fujita. He seemed irrationally angry, and even though she had grown accustomed to seeing him feeling down, it was particularly painful this time.
それにしても畠山葵はまだ10歳ですよ。ライフルみたいな巨大な銃を扱うなんて非常識です。
免許が発行されないだけよ。操作自体は子供でもできるわ。
ですが
He tried to make a rebuttal, but nothing came out. Across the country, there were several incidents involving hunting rifles every year. Among them, many were children mistakenly pulling the trigger as a prank, but in some of the worst cases they did so with intent to kill. Thus, it seemed unwise to call the theory absurd and brush it aside. Indeed, Tomei had heard testimony from the neighboring housewives that Aoi's father, Misao Hatakayama, had gone several hunting trips with her.
これは推測でしかないけど、もしマサオが面白がって一緒にいた娘にその撃ち方を教えていたとしたらどう？
If she told him she was interested in learning, he probably would have let her try it out. So maybe she had been familiar with the operation. The argument that it was impossible for a child was easily refuted that way.
そしてこの写真、いくら散弾銃とはいえど発射時の反動は子供の体では濃く。
So it would leave a bruise because of the recoil.
だから部屋の壁に背中を押し付けてこう撃つ。
After simulating that pressure against the conference room posture, she picked up one of the pictures she had taken herself and looked at the closet door. On the other side of the sliding door, she saw the blood spatter from when Yoshiko was shot. And to support her argument, she found a mark left behind about 3 feet off the ground on the closet door.
では、畠山葵が頭部を殴打されて気を失ったというのは、
彼女の嘘でしょうね。最後の正雄への射撃の際、健太郎やよし子の時と違って、葵はその反動を抑えきれなかった。銃口を上に向けて発射したからでしょうね。だから吹き飛ばされて、頭を打ちつけて失神した。
それについては、現場の証拠だけでは判断できないと鑑識は言っておりました。ですが、自分も可能性は高いと思います。ただ、それにしても。
It's horrific, isn't it? Fujita tried several times to calm himself by breathing steadily. But eventually, he cried out while clenching his fist.
これは、自分には分かりません。自分の親を、弟を殺す理由が一体どこにあったというんですか。まして、畠山葵は10歳ですよ。10歳の女の子が、そんな残虐なことをなんで。
Tomei remained silent as she thought back on what happened before. A few of her friends said terrible things to her about Hinamizawa, and it pushed her over the edge. They say that among all the school levels, the bullying committed by middle school students is the most cruel. Since students can't understand anything at that age, they succumb to peer pressure and take things too far. So if Tomei hadn't stepped in to help her that one time, it may have been even worse. Her sorrow transformed into resentment. Her anger festered into hatred. So it actually seemed a natural reaction for Aoi to lash out against her family, the source of her problems.
ただ、わからないのは殺人という積極的行動に出たことね。
Hinamizawa syndrome.
通常はあの年頃の子なら内面的なストレスを抱えたまま部屋に閉じこもるとか他者との交流を断つとかいった消極的な犯行で収まるはずなのに。
行動が年相応じゃないという。
ええ、嘘の証言をしているのも気になるわね。しかもその内容ができすぎている。一体何があの子の発想をそこまで飛躍させて成熟させたのか。
Yeah, puberty. Puberty instilled murderous rage in her. That's what this is.
見ないさん。
畠山葵の監視を強化して。逮捕状を取るつもりは当然ないけど、最悪の可能性が考えられなくもない。病院側にもその連絡を。
わかりました。それでは。
あ、藤田くん。
Tomei called out to Fujita as she tried to dash out. And after failing to find the right words, she held up one hand in apology.
ごめんね。藤田くんには嫌な思いをさせちゃって。今度何かおごるから。
いいですよ。俺はミナイさんの一のアッシーくんですから。ミナイさんこそ一人で抱え込まないでくださいよ。
ええ、ありがとう。抱え込まないでか。
As Tomei finished writing the report, she threw down her pen, leaned back into her chair, and looked upward. She noticed the fluorescent lamps on the ceiling. One was poorly illuminated, probably broken.
打ち明けても気がめいるだけの話はどう処理すればいいのかな。
Fujita thought that there was no way to explain this girl's violent behavior. But Tomei was thinking about it the other way around.
なら彼女に 本来ありえない行動を起こさせたものは一体何だったんだろう。
Murder is generally avoided because people see it as an inhumane act. But murder exists because people are paradoxically willing to abandon their humanity. Outside of self-defense and hunting, a certain mindset is required to transition from murderous intent into execution. Since young people still haven't fully mentally developed and have a lot of outside influences, it can be difficult to find the meaning behind their actions. Someone's existence is threatened, and that drives them to kill. Some crisis overtakes their life, and that drives them to kill. Those two scenarios require a fully realized understanding of the value of life and existence. And that concept is not properly rooted during early childhood. It develops through interactions with other people during adolescence, nourishing a concept of empathy for other people. So for young people who are essentially children, aside from unfortunate accidents, they lack the very concepts required to conceive the notion of killing another person. They don't understand the benefits of murder.
でも畠山葵がその思考を持ち得ていたとしたら、
Who did she learn that from? Who would give a 10-year-old girl the insight necessary to commit such a horrible crime? Tomei shook her head and opened her eyes to escape that maze of thought. She found it difficult to think too much about it. However, she was certain there was some common element linking the strange behavior and crimes committed by the people from Hinamizawa. If they couldn't figure it out, these tragedies would only continue. Just then.
あ、痛い。お姉ちゃん。
Hello, Monaka.
え？なんだ、Modakaか。
The door to the room opened, and her sister Monaka came in.
何か用？ずいぶん早い時間みたいだけど、あなたは夜勤だった？
通常の日勤だよ。お姉ちゃんがもう出勤したって聞いたから、ちょっと早めに。ね。
そう？
Tomei had actually stayed overnight at Kakushi Station, but she thought it would be too troublesome to mention that, so she didn't bother to correct her sister.
で、どうなの？今日は来てくれるの？
今日？一体何のこと？
はあ、やっぱり忘れてやがりましたよ、この人は。今日は大事な日だから覚えていてって、あんなにお願いしたでしょうが。
After seeing Maka cross her arms and puff out her cheeks, Tomei flipped open her notebook and checked the schedule.
ああ。
Right. Today was the day that Chief Yamaoki's parents were coming to town to meet their future daughter-in-law, Monaka. Oh boy! Meet the family!
どう？思い出した？
思い出すも何も勝手に言ってくればいいじゃない。別に止めないわよ。
The chief wasn't fond of his parents, but he didn't hate them either. He was their son, after all. They tried calling him a lot, and they came all the way from Yamaguchi to meet his fiance, Modaka. Excuse me. Tomei wasn't heartless enough to deny an elderly couple their happiness. In fact, when Maka told her about it a couple days ago, she responded, "Isn't that nice?"
ああ、つまりこの意味でのご祝儀か。
Tomei thought back to her earlier conversations with Ooshi and let out an exasperated sigh.
ま、あんたってお年寄りにはなぜか好かれるみたいだからね。普通に話していればうまくいくわよ。気楽に行けばきっと大丈夫だって。
そうじゃなくって、お姉ちゃんも来てくれるんでしょ？一緒に。
え？嘘？私もってるの？
当たり前でしょ？だからわざわざ確かめたのに。
Until just then, she hadn't even thought about it at all. Thinking back on it, at the time when Tomei responded, "Isn't that nice?" to Monaka, she seemed strangely happy about it.
しまった。そういう意味だったのか。
違うの？ねえ、お姉ちゃんってば。
私は関係ないでしょ。あんた一人で行ってくればいいじゃない。
何言ってるのよ。関係めちゃありでしょうが。向こうは親御さんが来てるんだよ。だったら私の身内のお姉ちゃんが同席してくれなきゃ失礼でしょ。
Tomei had clearly misread the situation. Even though it was only an accident, Maka made a compelling argument against it. However,
っていうか、その会合にあのバカ所長も出るの？
当然でしょ。
なら行かない。
お姉ちゃん！
へい、私は忙しいの。向こうにもそう伝えて。じゃあ。
she seriously didn't want that old man calling her sister-in-law. After Tomei's ultimatum, she stood up with her report in hand. Normally, Maka would get shocked and angry with her sister during an argument and storm away. But today she wouldn't let it end there. Oh no, Maka is here and she's gonna take a prisoner.
待ってよ。
Maka grabbed Tomei's arm with both hands to stop her. And Maka gazed at her, on the verge of tears.
ねえ、お姉ちゃん、出てよ。今日だけは。お姉ちゃんは私のたった一人の家族なんだよ。そりゃ喧嘩したり家出したりしてしばらくお姉ちゃんと離れて暮らしてたけど、私ちゃんとカオルさんのご両親に紹介したいの。私はお姉ちゃんがいたから今日まで生きてこられたんだって。
まどか。
私はお姉ちゃんにちゃんと認めてもらいたいの。それにこの結婚、私だって真剣なんだよ。昔みたいにいい加減で適当に思いついたんじゃない。だからお願い。結婚のことはまだ認めてもらえなくても、私お姉ちゃんが信じてくれるようになるまで頑張るから。でも今日だけでいい。
Maka stared at Tomei with an unrelentingly serious expression. Allowing her to continue opposing the marriage was her biggest concession. Moreover, this meeting with his parents could potentially influence the perception of their other relatives. But if events proceeded as they normally did, Tomei would leave here and they would fight for a while. Those disappointing thoughts were causing Monaka's eyes to tremble. When Tomei saw that, she paused for a while to collect her thoughts. Then, she responded in a casual tone.
わかった。行く。それから、結婚、認めてあげる。まあそうなると私もアンニャロウの親御さんがどんな人か見ておかないといけないしね。あんたが嫁姑関係でちゃんとやっていけるかじっくり観察してやろうじゃないの。
お姉ちゃん、今なんて。
Suddenly, unable to understand what she meant, Maka tightened her grasp on Tomei's arm. It was so sudden, she couldn't believe it. I can't either. Even though she tried persuading her 19 times in the past, it never amounted to anything. That's why she never expected her sister to acquiesce today. Tomei shrugged her shoulders while smiling at her sister.
認めるって言ったのよ。一 一人だけ反対しててもなんだかお邪魔虫みたいだしね。あんたがうまくやれるかまだ半信半疑だけど、頑張りなさい。ただし絶対条件が一つ。アンニャローが私のことを姉さんって呼ばないこと。これだけは絶対譲らないからね。わかった？
本当に？取り消し不可だよ。言ったら許さないよ。後で4月バカとかごまかしたりしないよね。
言わないわよ。こんなクソ暑い4月があってたまるかっての。
お姉ちゃん！
ちょっと。
Ambushed by sudden hug, Tomei screamed in confusion and embarrassment. But when she looked at her sister, who was still trembling, she gently rubbed her back.
ありがとう、お姉ち
ゃん。もういいか。この辺が引き際だろ。
She still felt a little hesitation, but when Tomei thought about it, she didn't feel any regret.
それじゃあお姉ちゃん、今日はよろしくね。
はいはい。そういや、親御さんとはどこで会う予定なの？
柿内駅前の中央広場だよ。5時にそこで待ち合わせて、そのまま料亭に直行するの。
5時か。ちょっと時間あるわね。ならその前に歯医者行ってきてもいい？またちょっと痛くなってきたから。
いいけど。で、まだ治ってなかったの？
悪かったわね。ここんとこ忙しかったもんだから、つい。
Even so, it was more than a week ago when Tomei first mentioned her teeth were hurting. She was so serious about work as she hadn't taken a day off since then. Despite those shaky thoughts about her sister, Monaka felt pleased.
おかしいな。しばらく痛みが静まってたから治ったと思ってたんだけど。
虫歯は自然治癒しないよ。
知ってるわよ。冗談だって。あ、しまった。保険証家に置きっぱなしだった。どこにしまったっけな。
それじゃあ私の貸してあげるよ。はい、これ。
After saying that, Monaka took the insurance card out of her wallet and handed it over. It was covered in a gaudy floral protective case like a high school girl would use. When Tomei saw it, she quickly put it away. No, that wasn't all.
何言ってるの？これあんたの保険証でしょ？私は登録されていないんだし、使うのはルール違反よ。
もう、また固いこと言うな。別に他人じゃないんだし、悪用されるなんて誰も思わないってば。
そういう問題じゃない。私たちは公務員なんだから、その辺はきちんとわきまえて。
どうしたの？お姉ちゃん。
What? What's on your mind? Suddenly, Tomei went silent and gazed at the contents of the insurance card in her hand. Oh, wait a minute. Let me guess. Is this insurance company, you see some information on the insurance company that links it to those capsules, right? And then she raised her head while taking a deep breath. Then, as Monaka watched in confusion, she quickly reached for the phone and turned the dial.
松岡くん、だべってる暇はないの。ちょっとだけいい？例の事件。そう、その事件。そこでカルテを回収した病院はどこかわかる？
お姉ちゃん？
ごめん、まどか、ちょっと黙って。
Tomei held the receiver to her ear, and she pulled a road map out of her drawer and spread it out. Then she ran her finger along to verify a location and scribbled something on her memo pad. She tore the sheet of paper out and held it up.
あ、それと例の薬の分析どんな感じ？そう、わかった。終わったら報告よろしく。それじゃ。
As Tomei hung up the phone, she quickly wrote down the destination in Gifu Prefectural Police Forensics Department on the 1st Division's scheduling board. It happened so fast, Maka was stunned for a while.
ちょっとお姉ちゃん、どこに行くのよ。
Indeed, she looked like she was about to head out, so Maka suddenly called out to her. Seeming to finally notice, Tomei looked back and said, "Oh," then awkwardly bowed her head.
ごめん、休養ができた。ちょっと出てくるね。
休養って今日の約束は？
大丈夫よ、場所はさっきメモった。ちょっと遅れるかもしれないけど必ず行くから。じゃあね。
こらお姉ちゃん、なんなのよもう。
This time, she didn't hear anything. She was moving like a tornado. There was nothing else Maka could do. She just had to believe that her sister stood by her words when she said she hated breaking promises. And so, she went back to work.
こちらが君吉夏美さんと畠山葵さんのカルテです。
ご協力感謝します。
Each of us poured through the records that the head nurse handed us. Both of them seemed to get sick at the turn of the season. They had occasional hospital visits and received medical consultation. However,
普通ですね。
普通ですね。
the fields containing the medical conditions were written in scribbled German, but we were able to grasp the contents based on the head nurse's translation. According to the records, they were afflicted with cold symptoms, a fever, and abdominal pain. Nothing terribly unusual. I bet this information is false!
病状はどんな感じだったかわかりますか？
さあ、私はお二人の時に立ち会っておりませんので、カルテに書かれた以上のことは。ただ、医師の判断内容と処方した薬の名前を見る限り、通常の患者さんとは特に変わりがなかったものと思います。
そうですか。ちなみに市長さんにお伺いします。こちらの薬について何か見覚えはありませんか？
薬？こんな色のカプセルは見覚えがないですね。1階の薬局で問い合わせていただけますでしょうか？
As I showed the head nurse the picture, I cautiously monitored her expression. She seemed confused and tilted her head to the side like this was her first time seeing it. She wasn't lying.
最後にお聞きします。こちらの病院で薬名とメーカー名が無記載、あるいは不明の薬剤を使用したことはありますか？
ありません。私の知る限りで申し訳ありませんが。
The head nurse answered somewhat unpleasantly. That seemed like a natural reaction for someone who took pride in providing medical care.
どうもお騒がせしました。大石さん、とりあえず薬局へ行きましょうか。結局成果なしでしたね。
いやいや残念です。なんとなくここには怪しいものを感じていたんですが。
Ooshi-san and I walked out the entrance. We looked back up at the Seiki General Hospital building. As expected of the only general hospital in the Chubu region, the building was clad with dignity. It seemed to have a certain arrogance that rejected outsiders, but that might just be my eyes playing tricks on me. When I went into the pharmacy and showed the pictures of the capsules to the pharmacists, they reacted just like the head nurse. This medicine was probably not prescribed at this hospital after all.
それにしてもならば君吉家と畠山家はこの
町の小さな医院か診療所か。いずれにせよ全部を調べるのはちょっと骨が折れますね。
全くです。
Counting all the medium to small clinics in Kakuchi City, there were at least 100. It would take an unreasonable amount of manpower to visit all of them and ask about this medicine.
仕方がありません。柿内署へ戻りましょうか、大石さん。
そうですね。残念です。せっかくともえちゃんに吉報をお知らせして明日の夕食は何かご馳走してもらおうと考えていたんですがね。
そんなことを考えていたんですか。まったく
またそんなこと言っちゃって。赤坂さんもちょっとは興味あるくせに。
そんなことはありませんよ。私は別に。
まあそう向きにならなくても。でもまどかちゃんもそろそろゴール間近ですし、彼女にもいい人が見つかればいいなぁと思いましてね。
After saying that, Ooshi-san lit a heavily damaged cigarette. Unlike his usual banter, I could see a tenderness in his eyes that resembled a father thinking of his daughter.
ずいぶん気にかけてるんですね、見ない警部のこと。
もちろん。ああいう努力の子はそれ相応の見返りがないと不公平というものですからね。でなきゃ私は神様に文句をつけたくなりますからな。
そうですね。
Effort, huh? I thought back to Natsumi Kimiyoshi-san. According to what Chief Inspector Minai heard, she had to put in considerable effort to keep up with her classmates since she moved to Kakuuchi. Moving from the country to the city, and enrolling in a college prep school in the middle of the semester. Either of those on their own would require a great deal of effort to adapt. And on top of that, the recent trouble with Hinamizawa, Natsumi-san had a lot of reasons for her deteriorated mental state.
真面目な女の子です。だからこそいろんなものを溜め込んで無理をして最後は自分を壊してしまう危うさを感じます。注意してあげてください。
Natsumi Kimiyoshi. She must have had so much stress from keeping up in school and learning to live in an unfamiliar city after leaving her small town behind. Even adults take a considerable amount of time to adjust to major changes in their daily life. And for a girl already dealing with the stress of preparing for college entrance exams, it must have weighed particularly heavily on her shoulders. The burden was far too heavy to ignore, but she hadn't developed the patience to work through it.
どうしました、赤坂さん。
いえ、大石さんの言う通り、努力が報われないような世の中にはしたくないものです。
まったくですな。
若村さんですか？お疲れ様です。まどかです。カオルさんは自宅を出ましたか？もう2時間前に。
Oh dear.
おかしいな。まだ到着していないみたいです。はい。わかりました。もう少し待ってみますね。それじゃあ。
Monaka hung up the receiver and let out a deep sigh. Wakamura was the housekeeper at Chief Yamaoki's house, an old-fashioned woman who served him for many years. Although Maka didn't make a good first impression of her, they eventually became friends. She was teaching Maka how to cook, going shopping together, and taking care of her.
参ったな。
She assumed Tomei would arrive late, but she never expected Chief Yamaoki would be late too. As a result, she was forced to play host for 2 elderly people she had only met today, and she had nobody around for her to complain to. Nonetheless, she couldn't keep his parents waiting forever, so Monaka decided to let everyone begin eating. But as time went on, it got harder and harder.
でもまあ、楽しんでくれてるみたいだし、いいか。
She was nervous at first about making a good first impression, but Yamaoki's parents seemed to be kind, friendly people from the countryside. In fact, Maka expected them to nag her about being too young, but neither of them touched the subject at all. Instead, they smiled and nodded while listening to her hobbies and interests.
きっと、先にカオルさんが言ってくれてたんだな。
All of her concerns had washed away, and Monaka was feeling happy.
それにしても。
Monaka suddenly laughed as she looked outside. Maybe it was just a coincidence, but this was the same restaurant where she and Tomei had met to reconcile their differences, and where she first confessed her relationship with Yamaoki, leading to a fight. Still, it didn't take long after that for the two of them to make up, so it still felt like a lucky place.
ようやく少しは取り戻してこれたかな。
Those happy days that were destroyed in an instant, followed by her sister's relentless efforts to compensate for it. Really, she always wanted to be as strong as Tomie, crying and suffering together, and in the end, she wanted to laugh. Yet, Tomie had continued pushing herself and making sacrifices, without ever relying on Monaka. So, she thought it would be best if she left. In doing so, she thought that her sister might eventually gain her own happiness.
私のやってたことは、ものすごく最悪の選択だったかもしれない。でも、それでいい。これで全て、うまくいったんだから。
Tomei climbed to the ranks of the elites of the National Police Agency, and Maka finally had something resembling a family. If she had continued living with her sister, it would have been impossible for the two of them to find happiness. Tomei still held a foolish grudge, but Maka was okay with that because she was able to hold her head up high. She wanted to have children quickly after getting married. Even though Tomei would probably complain about it, deep down she'd still feel happy, and she would probably visit from time to time. There was allegedly an orchard at Chief Yamaoki's parents' house. They will likely retire in a few years, and helping them out would be an interesting experience. And as the seasons changed, she could send Tomei some freshly harvested fruit. She could tease her older sister, saying, "Please find someone nice as soon as possible," all the while looking forward to her sister's success. That was the happy future Monaka envisioned. And when that was finally within arm's reach, they could find the time to relax.
さてと、そろそろ戻。ん？
Just then, she heard rough footsteps coming from the entrance of the restaurant. Someone was there, and she needed to see who it was. As Maka turned around, the man she was waiting for came around the corner of the hallway and appeared right in front of her.
あ、カオルさん。
You have an urgent look on your face. What's the trouble?
遅かったですね。もうお食事始めちゃってますよ。カオルさん？
まどか君、すぐに出る準備を。
え？来てるわけないか。
Waiting for someone?
ごめんなさい。
それは本当ですか?
What's going on? Ooshi-san shouted only that, completely speechless. However, he was still able to move. I, on the other hand, was so surprised that I didn't just lose my voice. I even forgot how to breathe.
間違いありません。
And then, Detective Fuchida's face turned pale, and his eyes were completely red, as he told us one thing.
見ない警部が柿内サービスエリア内で刺されました。
What the hell?
出血多量で現在危篤状態です。
Well, either she did something to provoke somebody, or somebody caught wind of a certain lead that she just found, and that she started to investigate and tried to silence her. I'm pretty certain it has something to do with the case, for sure. Although I can't exactly speculate what exactly it is right now. I need more information. Anyway, I think I'll go ahead and cut things off here. This seems like a good enough spot to stop things. I guess we'll see what exactly happened to Tomie in the next episode. In the meantime, though, I hope you guys enjoyed this latest episode of the Higurashi When They Cry console arcs. If you did, and you want to see more content from me, feel free to subscribe to my channel. I will see you all next time. Take care.